Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen. This is episode 53, The Bible is Historically Accurate. So previously we had discussed how the Bible is scientifically true. And the next episode I talked about the scholarly reasons we should read the Bible, the moral reasons, the logical reasons. And then the next episode I talked about how there are 0 contradictions in the Bible, and I disproved some of the main contradictions that people pretend that there are. So this episode will discuss the historical accuracy of the Bible. And I want you to listen to something really quick right before I do that. It's like a 30-second clip from Instagram.
You know, the Bible just says, well, no, first off, it's wrong. The Bible's not a book. The Bible's 6 books, 40 different people wrote it. Over 1,500 years is all ever. Does that make it the word of God? Because there's no people who wrote this. Give you some history. For hundreds of years, archaeology has used the Old Testament to find buildings, to find people, to find civilizations, to find kings that didn't exist or they didn't think they did. The Sunday Bible said they're digging up a miracle. They're not making the word of God. No, it means it's historically accurate. Real people really existed and really wrote down what they saw. It's worth considering. And then they said, we're going to have God show up, and lots of people said that. Lots of religions say it. Don't worry, we'll prove it. As rational God would do. Prophecies. I will show that I was in Utah. Then we can see the armor where you are. I will give prophecies to tell you what the guy, when I show him, God appears enough to reveal himself. I'll show you what he looks like. Over 300 And then a man showed up one day, named Jesus. And he said, I'm that guy. People can say, well, yeah, but we know the first Greek translation of the Old Testament was written 2,000 years before Jesus was born.
All right, so there you have it. I think the way that he explains that is just really good. Now let's get into some of those historical proofs. All right, that's what I wanted to talk about today. You see, the people of the Bible have proven that the Bible is historically true. For example, King David in 1 Chronicles 29. We have actually discovered the Canaanite stone monument that mentions King David. It's called the Tel Dan Stela, and Stela just means stone monument. We've found other proof of him as well, but there's an obscure king that people used to not believe was real, and that was King Omri from 1 Kings 16:22. Now, he was actually discovered in the Acropolis of the Samaria ruins. Then we have King Ahab in 2 Kings 8. King Shalmaneser III of Assyria wrote about him. And then we also find King Ahab in the Mesha Stela. So there's lots of people in the Bible that we have actually found evidence of in history. And the reason why that's so important is because for a very long time, at least in modern times, in the last 2,000 years, people have said that the Bible's fake. It's just a bunch of fake stories. A bunch of people wrote the Bible. They made up stories, or they embellished the truth, or you can't really prove the Bible. Well, these people that have been found historically to have actually lived in the time period and in the places that the Bible talks about backs up the accuracy of the Bible. So there's a whole bunch of them. King Jehu in 1 Kings 16, the black obelisk that was discovered actually proves who he was. Joash in 2 Chronicles 25, the Tel Arima stele is in the Iraq Museum in Baghdad. There's many others: Jeroboam II, Uzziah, Menahem, Ahaz, Pekah, Hoshea, Hezekiah, and this one's really cool. I wanted to talk about this one. Hezekiah, it was doubted that he was real. Nobody'd ever heard of him, okay, as far as archaeology and science goes. The 2 Chronicles 32 talks about him, and historically people said, well, here's proof that Hezekiah, the whole Bible story, is made up, because the Bible talks about a tunnel that he built and nobody had ever seen it. So we're talking modern times, 17, 18, 1900s. nobody had seen this tunnel, right? So 2 Chronicles 32 verse 2, it says, "And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib was come, and that he was prepared to fight against Israel, or Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him." So he stopped the water outside the city because this king was coming to besiege Jerusalem, right? So there were gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains in the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, "Why should the kings of Assyria come and find much water?" So basically, they were preparing to be besieged behind the walls of Jerusalem, and they didn't want the besieging army to have access to water, right? Now, he built a tunnel from to bring water inside Jerusalem under the wall, a hidden tunnel to a pool inside the city, so that they would have fresh water, but the enemy outside the city gates would not. And that's in 2 Kings 20 verse 20. And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made a pool and a conduit, or a tunnel, and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So it's from the Gihon spring to the southwestern side of the city that the pool of Siloam. It was thought to be a fake story until 1867. Sir Charles Warren discovered the tunnel. Now there's an inscription, the Siloam inscription, in stone, 20 feet from the south end of the tunnel, wasn't discovered until 1880. And here's what part of it reads, quote, "Are there flowed from the water from the spring to the pool over a space of 1,200 cubits, and of a cubit was the height of the rock above the heads of the excavators." Now that stone that has that quote on it is in the Turkey Istanbul Archaeological Museum. In addition to this tunnel, and King Hezekiah, who had the tunnel built, the idea of a cubit being a unit of measurement was previously thought to be made up from the story of Noah's Ark. So nobody believed in the cubit until they found this at the entrance to the tunnel that measured the length of the tunnel by cubits. So towards the end of December 2015, archaeologists made an interesting discovery near the Temple Mount, and they found a clay royal seal, or a bulla, inscribed with the name of King Hezekiah. It had a royal motif and an Egyptian hieroglyph on it. That's in the Israeli Museum. It was also described, this besiegement of Jerusalem and King Hezekiah, on the Akkadian cuneiform inscription, or also known as Sennacherib's prism, which describes the siege, the tribute, and the battle with King Hezekiah, discovered in 1830 AD, and that's in the British Museum. So multiple proofs here for this king, with a story of the tunnel, and then the measurement, the length of the tunnel, which is really cool. And I'll go into that a little bit later for multiple reasons here. But it wasn't until 1867 that people realized this Bible story was true. So King Hezekiah's tunnel is just an amazing thing that I really love to talk about. But that goes to the second thing, not just the people of the Bible, but the locations and the events found in the Bible are actually found to be true. So everyone thought these made up stories. Number one here was King Hezekiah's tunnel, discovered in 1867. So for 1800 years, everyone except for the Jews thought this was a stupid story. And then all of a sudden we prove that the Bible was right. Now there's another one. The city of Arad is described in Numbers 21, the Canaanite king of Arad. And this was actually discovered in 1962 while building a new town, 30 kilometers northeast of Beersheba. It was excavated in 1962 all the way up to 1974 by Aharoni and Amram. So that city was proven to be true. Capernaum was proven to be true. Jesus talked about it in Matthew 17. They came to Capernaum, and that was where he was asked about paying taxes. And in 1866, Charles William Wilson identified the city known as Tel Hum as actually Capernaum. So they've actually excavated that city that prior to 1866, people didn't believe it existed. Now, this one, you guys might know, Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, it's typically the Bible story of how it was filled with sodomites, gay men who were doing horrible things, raping people and things like that, and nothing but evil in that city. Genesis 13. And it says that they and their cities were destroyed by God. Well, guess what? It was discovered in approximately 2005, excavations by Dr. Stephen Collins, the dean at the College of Archaeology at Trinity Southwest University in New Mexico. The place is called Tel Al Haman, and it's a collection of 5 cities, a huge archaeological discovery, and his results were recently published in the prestigious scientific journal Nature. It's located in the Jordan Valley near the Dead Sea. Go figure. Um, if you know anything about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, how it was destroyed and everything, and then of course you look at the Dead Sea, and it's kind of makes you think a little bit about why the sea is the way it is. The next city, the location is Gezer. That's in Joshua 16. They talk about that one, and McAllister discovered that in 1902, excavated until 1909. The city of Hazor in Joshua 11, the city of Hesbon in Joshua 12. All of these cities and many more have been discovered. I'm just touching, the tip of the iceberg on this stuff. There's so many archaeological discoveries that are based on the Bible that prove the historical accuracy of the Bible. It's amazing. Jericho, if you guys remember the story of that, how they walked around the wall 6 times, and on the 7th time they blew their trumpets, the walls fell down, and they went in, and it's where the 12 spies went. 2 of them were saved by the prostitute Rahab, and they promised her and her household, if they stayed in there, they'd be safe, right? So that's in Joshua chapter 6. It was excavated by a person by the name of Warren in 1867. 2 other people did much deeper excavations in 1907. And then a woman by the name of Kenyon in 1952. So she actually found the fallen wall. Under the direction of the British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon on the west side of the tell at the base of the retaining or revetment wall, she found, and this is in her words, quote, fallen red bricks piling nearly to the top of the revetment. These probably came from the wall on the summit of the bank or the brickwork above the revetment. In other words, she found a heap of bricks from a fallen city wall that came to the height of the lower wall down below the city. So an Italian team excavating at the southern end of this city in 1997 found exactly the same thing on the other side of the city. What the Germans found in 1907 on the north side is pretty fascinating. This mirrors Joshua 6:23 about Rahab's house. They found a short stretch of the lower city wall that didn't fall. A portion of the mud brick wall was still standing to a height of over 8 feet. And what is more, there were houses built against that section of the wall. It's quite possible that this is where Rahab's house was, and the only place left standing where people were saved. Then the Bible talks about how they burned that city afterwards. After they killed everybody, they burned everything, except for the gold and the silver, I believe. The woman excavator Kenyon described this devastation. Quote, the destruction was complete. Walls and floors were blackened or reddened by fire. Every room was filled with fallen bricks, timbers, and household utensils. In most rooms, the fallen debris was heavily burnt, but the collapse of the walls of the eastern rooms seems to have taken place before they were affected by the fire. Even stores of grain, which is very unusual in archaeology to find burned grain due to its value. And in Joshua 6:24 it says, and they burnt the city with fire, and all that was therein, only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. Now, there's a whole lot more. We'll get into that in the second part of this episode, so stay tuned.